So I decided to read two books today to you because I just found out that Tomie dePaola, the author of the month that we've been studying in March when we were at school, he passed away. He was 85 years old. He ended up falling and he ended up having surgery and he ended up passing away. So, in honor of Tomie dePaola, I wanted to read Finn McCowell, the Giant of Knockmany Hill. Now, the purpose of this story is to make you laugh. And so I hope that you laugh during the story. In olden times, when Ireland's glens and woods were still filled with fairies and leprechauns, giants too lived on that fair Emerald Isle. One of the finest of those big folks was Finn McCowell, who was wed to the lovely great lass Unog. They made their home on the top of Knockmany Hill. Now, as any good giant, Finn McCowell had his work to do, so he was often away from home. Lovely Unog didn't seem to mind, for there was plenty to keep her own hands busy, spinning, knitting, and even giving a pretty touch to their great house. Life was very pleasant indeed. One morning, when Finn McCowell was busy working with his kin, building a causeway to Scotland, the word came that Cuchulainn was coming. Cuchulainn was a giant too, and without a doubt the strongest in that part of the world. When he walked, the very earth trembled, and with one blow of his fist, he had flattened a thunderbolt, so it looked like a pancake. He was so proud of that feat that he kept the thunderbolt in his pocket to show all just how strong he was. Every giant in Ireland had been given a good beating by Cuchulainn. Every giant, that is, except Finn McCowell. And Cuchulainn swore by the green that he would never rest day or night, winter or summer, until Finn McCowell was added to his list. So if we think, Cuchulainn, definitely not seen be seen. So far, Finn had been smart enough. He kept moving about whenever he heard that Cuchulainn was in the neighborhood. But this time, Cuchulainn was sure to get him. So Finn left the causeway and sped off for Knockmany Hill, his house, and his darling Unog. "Finn, my love," said Unog, greeting him at the door. "What brings you home so early from work?" "The chance to get a sight of you, my sweet thing," said Finn. Since he was as honest as the summer day is long, he added, "and to keep out of the way of Cuchulainn. He's after me." Unog soothed her husband. She brought him his slippers and lit a pipe for him. She stirred up the peat fire so it would be cozy. Then she set down a huge mug of stout and cut a gigantic slab of soda bread for her dearie. "Finn, husband of mine, enough is enough," said Unog as gently as she could. "For years you've been hiking around from one place to another to avoid this Cuchulainn. Why, you even built our house high on this windiest of hills so you'd be able to spy him coming. You'll not get a moment's rest until you stand fast and face him." I'll be getting plenty of rest if I stand fast and he knocks me down. I don't have the heart to face a man who could make a young earthquake just with his walk and who carries around a flattened thunderbolt in his pocket just to prove his strength. At that, Knockmany Hill gave a little dance. "He's coming," said Finn, his face turning a fine shade of pale green. "Now, hush," said Unog, "and give me time to think. Do you worry that I won't do all I can to help you settle this matter once and for all?" Unog then worked a charm the fairies had taught her. She took 9 woolen threads, each a different color, and braided them into 3 braids. She put one around her right arm, one circling her heart, and the third around her right ankle. Now, nothing she did could fail. Next, she sent around to all the neighbors to borrow 1 and 20 iron frying pans. She hid them in 1 and 20 loaves of bread that she baked on the fire in the usual way. She set them in the cupboard with some bread she had baked the day before. She then took a pot of milk and made it into a fresh, wet cheese and put it along with some white stones at the foot of the cradle she had made up. "Now, my darling," she said, handing Finn some baby clothes, "put these on and do everything just as I'm about to tell you. And remember," she said at the last, "Cucullin's strength lies in the brass finger he has on his right hand. Now quick, into the cradle, because I hear that man mounting at the door." So we've studied trickster tales before. Who in our story today is being a trickster? "All right, woman," bellowed the giant at the door. "Where's that coward Finn McCowell that I've been chasing after all this time?" "Well, well," said Unog in her sweetest smile. "Now, isn't that a shame? Finn was off working on the causeway when some important family affair called him away. But he'll be home by tea time, so why don't you just come right in and sit down?" Poor Finn trembled in the cradle. "See this?" Cucullin said, pulling what looked like a thunderbolt or a pancake out of his pocket. "This was a thunderbolt until I caught it and flattened it. And that's what I'm going to do to Finn McCowell too." "Tisk, tisk," said Unog. "That may not be as easy as you think. Finn McCowell's a big broth of a man. Why, take a look at our little baby and you might be getting an idea of the strength and breadth of Finn himself." Cucullin peeked in the cradle. "Chirrup," said the huge baby, looking back at him. "My," said Cucullin, "what a big boy." "Why, you're right. Why not have a bite to eat?" said Unog. She put some loaves of bread on the table, along with a can or two of butter and a pile of cabbages. Cucullin, who was as much a glutton as he was a bully, popped a loaf into his mouth and took a huge bite, right down on one of the frying pans. "Clang! Yow!" shouted Cucullin. "What kind of bread is this? Here are 2 of my teeth out." "That's Finn's bread, the only kind he eats," said Unog. "Is it a bit too tough for you?" "Too tough for me?" shouted Cucullin. "I should say not. Just give me another." Cucullin chomped into another loaf and into another frying pan. "I'll not have a tooth left in my mouth, woman. There's 2 more out," Cucullin hollered even louder. You could say that Cucullin is quite determined. The baby began to holler too. "Hungry, hungry, hungry." "Ah, sweet dumpling," said Unog, and she handed baby Finn a loaf. And because there was no frying pan in it, Finn ate it right down. "More," said the baby, and he gobbled up another loaf. "He seems a strong lad," said Cucullin, getting a little worried. If this was the baby, the father must indeed be a bit stronger than Cucullin thought. "Ah, yes," said Unog, beaming. "Why, instead of dollies, he loves to play with those white stones there in his cradle. Show the nice man, baby dear." Finn did as he was told. He picked up a stone, that was really the cheese, and squeezed all the water out of it, and popped it into his mouth and ate it down. Cucullin was not to be outdone by a baby. He grabbed a stone and squeezed. He squeezed and squeezed. Squeeze as he might, he couldn't get 1 drop of water out of it. He popped it into his mouth, and with a chomp, there went the rest of his teeth. The howl that came out of him almost broke all the windows. When he finally calmed down, Cucullin said to Unog, "What kind of teeth does that lad have? They must be made of iron. Let me see your choppers, baby." At that, baby Finn opened wide his mouth, and Cucullin stuck in his brass finger, the very brass finger that was the secret of his strength. What do you think's going to happen? With a strong bite, Finn McCowl bit the brass finger right off. Then up Finn leapt and began to pound the daylights out of poor weak Cucullin. That was that. Out the door went Cucullin, never to bother anyone, let alone Finn McCowl again. "Tea's ready, my love," said Oonagh, and Finn McCowl sat down with the best giant wife in the whole world, and they lived a long, happy life. So I hope that you have a chance to get some more Tomie dePaola books, because with us not being at school, I didn't get a chance to read some of the Tomie dePaola books that I really wanted to, but I at least got to read this one. And I hope that you guys have a great day.